Hello and welcome to Barrelman TV. My name is Steve Fleck. I'm the official announcer for the Barrelman Triathlon and the MultiSport Canada Triathlon Race Series and 30 other running, cycling, and triathlon races all across North America each year. Very pleased to have as my guest today the founder of MultiSport Canada and the Barrelman Triathlon, John Salt. John, great to see you.
Good to see you, Steve. It's interesting, your lineup of events that you're announcing, and if I recall correctly, I believe your first gig was with us.
Indeed it was. I am honored and privileged that the very first professional announcing that I ever did, John, was with you and the MultiSport Canada team. That now you're taking me back a few taking me back a few years. Speaking of going back a few years, John, when was the first sort of inkling of the Barrelman Triathlon in your mind? You had been running the MultiSport Canada series for a while by that point, but what was the first inkling and moment that you thought, hey, Niagara Falls, Welland, this would be a great place for a race?
Well, it was actually, it was 2011. We'd been running the series at that point for about 10 years. And now my business partner, Jason Burma, was our operations and logistical guru. And we had gotten to the point where we felt we're ready to put on some sort of a destination race. And that was something we wanted to do. And the question was where. The venue at that time where we had a longer event was in Welland. We had a long course event in there. And Jason and I happened to be talking to the mayor of Welland in December of that year. And I said, we're looking at, it would be great if we could have this destination race. I think every race director would like that. And he said, why don't you just use Niagara Falls? It's just down the road. And it's like, wow, okay, I never thought about it. However, where are you going to swim in Niagara Falls? And we realized, well, we've got the best swim venue perhaps in all of triathlon in Ontario being the waterway, which we were already using for the swim portion. So we left that meeting and got in the car, and 25 minutes later, we were in Kingsbridge Park. There was about 6 or 8 inches of snow on the ground, and it just all sort of came to, this is how it's going to look. And I actually have pictures of me standing, not with my face, but you could see me from behind in the snow, imagining the finish line. And from there, it took off. We were excited. We thought we had something special.
And that swim venue is the backdrop to, you can't see it, but it is your virtual backdrop on our call and our interview today. That is the Welland International Flatwater Center in the background. Tell us a bit about that. I mean, you mentioned it's one of the most amazing swim venues in the world. Tell us more about it, John.
Well, it is a waterway. I think they had you'd have to correct me perhaps, on the Pan Am Games, I believe, a couple of years ago. Steve, the rowing was there. Originally our swim was a little bit further north in the waterway. And we thought, well, if we're going to have, again, this destination event, let's have a venue that really takes us there. And we went down and drove down and looked at the waterway, and well, this is absolutely perfect. I mean, one, you don't get the winds and turbulence that create turnover of temperatures. So that sort of reduces the angst of some athletes. What's the water temperature? Because it's going to be fairly consistent. And two, you do have that waterway. So with the canal being there and that waterway, the sight lines were great. And then we realized there was an added bonus, which a lot of the athletes love to hear about, is there's actually a guy wire under the water, which holds all the marker buoys for the rowing course. So we tell everybody, and I think you'll be telling them that on Saturday at the pre-race briefing, look for the guy wire, and you don't even have to look up. You can just follow it all around the course.
I mean, it is like swimming almost, not exactly, but it's almost like swimming in a giant swimming pool, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. So it's a great venue for that. One of the things that we do have to contend with, of course, is because it's fairly narrow. It's great if you can have a few hundred athletes, obviously, all at one time. You could have a mass start of that size, which we've had. But with the number of people we have with Barrelman, that's one of the reasons we space out the start times for the swim is so that it's not too congested in there, and the athletes start their day with a great swim experience. It also helps us out a little bit later on the bike course, because we don't want everybody getting out on that bike course at the same time either.
Now, new races and events are never without their challenges. What were some of the more significant challenges you faced, John, bringing that very first Barrelman race to fruition?
Well, there really was only one, Steve. Everybody that we mentioned, that we spoke with about Barrelman, they at that point, it wasn't Barrelman, of course. We had a contest to name that, but that's another story. They thought, well, this could be really cool, you know, point to point. And once you get the logistics that figure out, and I knew Jason could do that. The biggest thing was we went to Niagara Falls, and the Niagara Parks Commission basically owns the land where Kingsbridge Park is. And then above that, of course, is the city. It's a tourist destination. It's known worldwide. We don't need you. We got lots of people in here in September. You know, we just don't need you. But the Niagara Parks Commission is very, very supportive of events and works. They're one of the best teams ever as far as us working with people to support events. So we started with a meeting with them, and then it took us 2 years to get the approvals, because 2 years of stakeholder meetings. So the EMS, the fire and police services, the casino, the BIAs, and I think there's 3 in the Niagara Falls area. So we had to get everybody past the thinking of, well, we don't need you. What's a triathlon? You know, that's also something common. You know, what is that? Does it involve, you know, horse racing or something? I don't know. So, you know, once we told them what it would be like and our vision for it, they decided to work with us, and we're very grateful for that. Especially Sarah Woods and Tracy Wallace, who is now with Niagara Parks Commission, but Sarah Woods was the person then, and still is, that's the key marketing and event person, and she was extremely helpful and continues to be so.
That's a bit of a peek under the hood, John, at the type of work that goes on behind the scenes, even before a first race is even put on, even before that first starting horn, you know, goes off. Is this something that, you know, race participants, you know, need to know, or is it just a nice to know?
Sorry, in what sense, Steve?
Well, just the sense that there's tremendous amount of work. Most people just show up on race day and everything's all set up beautifully. Yeah. And they're kind of focused and in the moment. But you had mentioned it had taken you 2 full years before that of planning and work and effort to get that first, you know, race, you know, off the ground. Right. I guess I'm asking, is that normal, or, you know, what kind of things or expectations should athletes have, you know, with races and events? I think they're just a bit naive, is where I'm going with this, about the sort of the preparation that goes on behind the scenes. Yeah,
well, 2 years is completely abnormal. I mean, yeah. Typically we would go to a community where we felt it was a good venue for an event, and we're all welcomed with open arms. That is changing somewhat, and has over the years, simply because a lot of our events in the series are in cottage country locations, and they don't need athletes coming in there and jamming up their streets either, but they also are very supportive. You know, because we're a good partner for them. We're always mindful that we're guests. But as it relates to the athletes, I think there's a lot of athletes who are fairly knowledgeable as to what goes on behind the scenes. But even those athletes, I think if we dove down deeper, would be quite surprised. I mean, I think most people would not know or appreciate the fact that the Barrelman course, point to point, that involves 30 police officers, 30. And the run course, there's another 15 police officers. So we have to hire 45 police officers to make sure that the athletes are safe. And obviously we like to do it. We're going to make sure they are safe. So it's little things like that. I think a lot of people might be surprised.
Has there been a favorite moment of yours? Obviously, the Barrelman's not happened for 3 years, since 2019. But prior to that, of the versions of the race that had run, has there been a special moment for you?
You know, it's really hard to pick out one special moment. I mean, it's been great. We've had athletes like Lionel Sanders raced with us. Jackson Laundrie raced with us. Cody Beals. We've had some great athletes come up from the States to race with us. And that's nice when you have somebody, you know, an athlete of that caliber competing. But for me, and I know for the team, it's always about the customer experience. That's what's really important to us. And you know this, Steve, we stand at the finish line together. There's really nothing like watching somebody finish an event and you know, they're either crying out with joy, leaping and shouting, and this is phenomenal, or some come across the line and they're in tears because they're so proud. They realize what they've accomplished on the day, you know, and it's a big deal. There's you know, some of us who competed in the half or iron distance events, we've forgotten what it's like to be nervous. You know, it becomes, I guess, somewhat passive. Oh, okay. But then you see these people, that's my favorite, will always be my favorite. And I know the team and you know, we share all of that at the finish lines. It's quite amazing.
Well, we did share one of those moments, and it was memorable 3 years ago when Shane Van Allen crossed that finish line. He was the final finisher in 2019 to bring down the curtain on the race. It hasn't happened, you know, for 3 years since then. John, you and I were there at the finish to greet Shane. He had DNF'd, I think, at least once before, but getting to that finish line for him was a big moment. We never know what the stories are until they actually get there. So what has changed with the Barrelman after a 3-year hiatus, coming back this Saturday and Sunday?
Well, the biggest change is really behind the scenes. If you consider the point-to-point aspect of the event, you know, that race covers a lot of geography and a lot of territory. There's several municipalities. It involves quite a few stakeholders. There's 3 different police departments, EMS, and what have you. Prior to 2019, our last event, we had gotten it to the point where it was a really smooth process. We would submit our request for permits and what have you, and no problem, taken care of right away. There's always been a bit of a struggle sometimes, or not always, but sometimes, to get police well in advance, because it's a paid duty. They have to be off duty and be able to work the paid duty. That's always been a little bit of a challenge at times. But what we're finding was that many of these agencies and stakeholders are now short-staffed. The pandemic has reduced their staffing levels. So where we were used to getting an approval, let's say 3, 4, 5, 6 months in advance, some of those approvals just came in a month ago. We knew we would get them, but I can tell you that's extremely nerve-wracking because it's not what you're used to. The other thing is, I guess, behind the scenes, it's another behind the scenes aspect is that, you know, from the company's perspective, we're like many businesses. You know, we basically mothballed MultiSport Canada for 3 years. And right at the beginning of the pandemic, we had to lay off all of our staff, or most of them. There was 1 or 2 people left, and some left because they had other opportunities, and you can't begrudge them for that. You know, Jason Burma has done an amazing job over the last 9 months, pulling together some of the old members of the team and getting new members of the team to work with him. And they've had a very successful summer with the triathlon series. The races have gone extremely well. And we're going to have that same team producing Barrelman. So as I say, we've had some hiccups along the way, but we've been able to manage those hiccups, and it's been interesting and challenging. But I can tell you, I'm glad we're past it, Steve.
Sunday waits just a few days away, John, and we'll get things underway. But it'll be a bit of a rust buster for you, as you had noted. The rest of us have been out at events all year, but this will be your first. I really look forward to working with you on Sunday. Specifically, John, what should athletes note in terms of some of the changes that they will see on the course and in other aspects of the race on Sunday?
Well, I think that there was 2 that I would focus on. The first being the run course changes. And by now, I suspect that all of the athletes who have registered and who are past participants and used the old run course know that there's been changes. And those changes we think are positive. The reason we had to make the change in the run course itself is that the Niagara Parks Commission has scheduled a lot of new infrastructure changes, and that is going to impact the excuse me, the Niagara Parkway. And because of that, we had to make the changes. First, I was really disappointed about it, and I was concerned. But then once Jason redesigned the course, we realized, hey, hang on here. This is actually very, very positive. In fact, one of our ambassadors from the States, Mac, was the first one to say, wow, I think this is going to be good. Because one, there's going to be less vehicular traffic on the course. And I know they were separated by cones and what have you, but you know, that traffic was at a standstill and exhaust fumes and what have you. The 21 stairs behind the casino that everybody had to run down. Some people were not too fussed about that. There was others who would finger wag me, you know, can you get rid of those stairs? And there really wasn't any way to do that. So they're gone now, which is great. And perhaps the best from a running experience is that the athletes do not have to go down Murray Hill. Now, they're still going to have to go down Burning Springs, which is going to be a quad buster. But the benefit, as far as not having to go down Murray Hill, is that there's a lot of pedestrians on that pavement. Even though you're asking them to move to one side, there's a lot there. And as you turned onto the parkway, a lot of it's basically a 5-way stop and lights. A lot of vehicular traffic, a lot of pedestrians. That's all gone. So I think that's going to be a positive, very much a positive for the runners. There is a recent change that I guess I'm announcing now. I'm hopefully, this is actually, by the time this airs, this will be on the website and we'll have sent out our notices through social media on Facebook. But as I mentioned earlier, the Niagara Regional Police, they've experienced a post-COVID staffing shortage. And I mentioned earlier as well, you know, typically we require 30 paid duty officers. They informed us 2 days ago that they're not going to be able to supply us with all of the officers that we need in order to have the course the way it's currently designed, which means that there will be an out and back prior to making the turn onto the road along Lake Erie. So basically, it's going to be a new, that section is going to be a little bit new. And it also, some athletes might be upset about this, some might not. It's going to shorten the course by about 3 kilometers. There's just no other way that we can get to 90. The other positive is that the last section of the ride on the Niagara Parkway, which is extremely scenic and goes by the river, that's a little bit longer this year. So that information, as I say, should be on the website by now. If it's not, it'll be shortly after this gets aired.
John, you mentioned our American friends visiting across the border, mostly from Western New York State. I had the pleasure of interviewing Michael Smith, who is the president of the Rochester Area Triathletes, aka the Rats, in an earlier episode of Barrelman TV. Mike is really looking forward to coming. I know we've had big support from that contingent of triathletes from Buffalo all the way over as far east as Rochester and Syracuse. How important for the event is it to have the Americans back with us this year on Sunday?
Well, it's always important to have the American athletes coming up to join us. Again, if you go back to the whole concept of having a destination event and having it in Niagara Falls, we had hoped that there would be a lot of support from the American athletes, and there has been. Buffalo Triathlon Club has been amazing over the years, and as you say, Mike's club is very important to us, and we're really pleased that they're going to be coming back. They've given us a lot of support. The numbers on the American side are going to be a little bit down, but I suspect that is simply because of the gyrations people have had to go through with COVID. Interesting enough, did get an email from Mike last night. Initially it was, oh, we might have some problems at the border, we'll let you know. And about 15 minutes later, no problem whatsoever, we got through. So I was really really happy to hear that the Arrive Can app worked and they got through. So we're looking forward to greeting him and all the members of the Rochester team, as well as any of the other teams.
That's great. That's great to hear. And I do look forward to meeting Mike personally. We did have a great interview, as I mentioned in an earlier episode. John, I recall back in the earlier era of the sport, point-to-point triathlons were popular. It was point-to-point swims, point-to-point bike rides, point-to-point runs, but then we kind of got away from them. And I know when you first sort of posited, the Barrelman with the point-to-point, bike course, I think there was a lot of sort of apprehension, on the part of a lot of athletes. But MultiSport Canada and, Barrelman, you've gone out of your way to make that as smooth as possible. For those who might still be a little bit nervous about that, just go over some of the high-level points that'll make that a smooth deal and transition for those in the race on Sunday.
Sure, absolutely, Steve. I say this a lot, and hopefully it's not too repetitive, but we always think about the customer experience. If you don't have a great customer experience, you don't have a great race. It's just as simple as that. And as soon as we knew this was going to be point to point, we also realized there would probably be a great amount of trepidation on the part of athletes saying, well, geez, how's this all going to work? So it was really it was important for us to do a good job in educating athletes. No, you don't have to worry. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that everything is going to run smoothly. So all I can tell you to answer your question is that we've designed a very seamless process with the shuttle buses from Niagara Falls to Welland. That's worked extremely well. And for those of you who think that you want to park in Welland, and leave from there, I can tell you now there's no bus back. So you're going to have somebody with you who can drive you back post race. But the beauty of being able to get on the park just a kilometer down the road from the finish line, get on the shuttle bus with your gear, and you're taken right to the T1. As I say, it's been seamless and worked extremely well. The other thing is, with a point-to-point, we've got to make sure that all their stuff's there in T2 when they come off the bike. Again, it's been flawless and seamless. We've never had a bag gone missing. We've never had any athlete being concerned about that. Our crew is extremely good at gathering that up and then making sure it is underneath your number on that bike rack. So you don't have to be looking around. The bag will be there. Judging by the 7 years of customer feedback we've had, it truly has been a success. I would say that we probably have a 99% approval rating as it relates to the point-to-point. The 1% might be the fact that people, sometimes would like to be able to get a shuttle back. That it's just not something that we can plan for or supply at this point in time. But now we just have to maintain that level of service, and we're devoted and dedicated to doing that.
John, in your journey to get here to the 2022 race, it goes without saying that there's probably a countless number of people that need to be thanked. Who are some of the more sort of important people you'd like to reach out to and thank for their support, help, and assistance, partnership, sponsorship, however it may be along the way? Well,
it might sound a little corny, but I really have to thank the team that's been built up by Jason. I mean, Jason, he had to virtually rebuild the MultiSport Canada production team. We were down to 3 people, Jason, myself, and one other person. Over the course of last winter, knowing that we had a pretty good shot at being COVID-free as it relates to events, he put together, he brought back 2 of our senior crew. Andre Gordon and Chris Pickering are back. Chris has always been our bike guru, and Andre is one of the people who will be managing both the transition areas as well as the run course. And, they're integral to also the planning process with Jason. So I want to thank them for what they've done. And then Carolyn Simons is our newest member of the team, and she's almost been a one-woman admin team and marketing team. Over the summer, we did have some help some student help over the summer for as far as admin goes, but it's pretty much been on Carolyn's shoulders, and she's done a tremendous job. so I would ask any of the athletes who perhaps recognize those people on the team or haven't met Carolyn at this point in time, at registration, she'll be there. Maybe wave hi. I'm sure that there's a lot of people who have great interaction. Outside of that, geez, you know, the list is so long in terms of thanking people. As I mentioned earlier, you know, the geographic spread, the number of municipalities, the various organizations, the police services and what have you, they have been great this year. As I mentioned, they've been short-staffed and what have you, but they've still, you know, risen to the occasion, and they worked hard to support us. And I've got to mention two very special people that have been involved with MultiSport Canada as it relates to an event in Welland. That's Ron and Linda Lemon. I guess the original Welland race was the Mike Burwell race. And that would have been maybe, geez, 30 years ago, Steve. I think probably about that long.
Yeah, I started in the sort of mid 1980s. I remember having a go at that a few times in a different era.
Yeah, well, that was a little bit hilly too, as I remember. So, but Ron and Linda were part of that team, and then when MultiSport Canada was asked to take over the Welland event by the Lemons and the organizing committee for the Burwell. So that's 14 years ago. And Ron and Linda have been invaluable, and especially with their, you know, they get 20, 30 volunteers. Most of the guys that you'll see at the swim exit helping athletes out of the water are these big burly guys. Every year they're at the same spot, and you know, they're just happy to be there. So we really do have to give a big thank you to them. The other people I'd like to mention, there's a number of athletes on the Facebook Barrelman group page who have had experience at this event, and people now are coming online and are asking some specific questions as to, it could relate to the shuttle buses, it could relate to anything, and a lot of those people have been extremely helpful in giving their perspective and their experience. So that makes it very much a positive. And then there's our actual ambassadors, William McInerney, call him Mac, who's from the Northeast United States, Michael Telpner and Linda Gingras and Angela Lilly. Michael and Mac, you know, they have worked hard to provide information online and working with that community. Regionally, Linda, who's down in the Ottawa, Quebec area, she's been a big influence in those two areas and bringing out more club members to the event. So we're thankful that she's helping us spread the word down there. And then Angela Lilly, who, yeah, she's raced with us probably since the very beginning, probably since, you know, 20 years with the series events. She's an F2C ambassador and has done a really great job in explaining to athletes, because it's the nutrition products on the course, it's important to train with those, and she's helped athletes navigate those waters. So we want to thank all of those people.
Other than their finisher's hat, finisher's t-shirt, and their awesome finisher's medal, John, what do you hope that athletes will walk away from the finish line of the 2022 Barrelman with when all is said and done at the end of the day on Sunday?
Well, you know, it's we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish in Niagara Falls and with Barrelman. You know, we basically supply that venue for athletes to, you know, get to race and challenge themselves, and the experiences that they have, that pride that I mentioned earlier on at the finish line, that sort of thing. So it's really important that we create a good atmosphere and know that the customers feel, the athlete customers feel that there's a great level of customer service. The fact that 40% of this year's participants are returning, the fact that 40% of the athletes that are participating for the first time are there because of word of mouth. And I think that speaks to how much people actually are loving the Barrelman experience. So going back to the fact that it's all about the customer for us, I guess all I can really say is my hope is that every athlete feels like they were treated as an individual, and that they now feel like they're a member of the Barrelman family.
I think that's a good spot to end it, John. It is all about family and community at the end of the day. Thank you, John, for taking the time with us today to chat. I know race week is a very, very busy time for a race director, so we really appreciate this.
Well, I thank you very much, Steve, for asking me last week if I would come on. I have to tell you, I was a little nervous before we started this whole thing. It's been 3 years, actually 3 years. 2018 was the last year that I shook hands at the finish line for the series events, and of course, as you mentioned, 2019 was the last year for Barrelman. So I have a feeling the nerves will be there going into the weekend, but having a chance to talk with you and think through some of these things is made it a great. It's going to make it an easier experience for me. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate being part of the transition back to the working world for you, John. That's awesome. You have been watching Barrelman TV, and my guest today has been the founder of MultiSport Canada and the Barrelman Triathlon, John Salt. I'm Steve Fleck on behalf of the whole team at the Barrelman Triathlon and MultiSport Canada. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on Sunday in Welland on the start line.